my sobriety has definitely gone through periods. I think that's the biggest learning for me is that most of the time I am so happy in my sobriety and all the benefits it's brought me. Um, Hello and welcome back to episode 8 of Recovery and the Rest with me, Ellen, and my mate Mandy. Um, Today we're kind of continuing the theme from last podcast, right? Podcast we were talking about positive connection with ourselves. And this week we're going to talk a bit about positive connection with others and what that looks like, or connection with others and what that looks like in, yeah, not always positive. In fact, it's quite interesting. I think a massive thing for me in this has been navigating conflict and
Mm.
conflict resolution in sobriety. So that'd be quite an interesting one to touch on as we work through this podcast. But Mandy, how are you doing?
Um, I am okay. Are you convinced?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Um, I well, yeah. I'm I'm I always find it's back to school, isn't it?
Yeah,
So I was saying before, I don't really understand what the point of nostalgia is, because I tend to get a bit like, oh, the kids are growing up and oh, like, um, and then that just makes me sad. I don't see the point. What's the point? I suppose it like is a testament to love or something, but um, yeah, I'm having a mild kind of internal meltdown about life. I feel very lonely all of a sudden. I think it maybe that's the thing, it's quite extreme. So it goes from like, oh my God, everyone's in my face, like fuck off everyone, to like, oh, I'm really alone and sort of standing on the it's only going to get more aloneness situation.
yeah,
So, my son is starting his last year of school and then that's it. Like I won't have kids in school. He'll go off to uni probably, like, or definitely, his intention is not to stay close to us, which is fair enough. I would definitely do the same. My husband works away a lot. So yeah, today it was just literally I forgot that he was going away, packed his bag, bye, see you on, you know, Friday. I think he's back. It's just like, oh, okay, here we go. It's me and the dog and the cat.
yeah,
Um, which yeah, I think I put a lot of my pressure on myself to be okay, to be complete. Like I think I suppose this is a whole other podcast, or maybe this is just where we'll sit at. But there is a real there's a real difference between isolation being, yeah, or isolating.
yeah,
And that's something you have to be very, very careful of in sobriety for sure. Um, and it's something that I'm good at as well. Um, being lonely and being alone,
yeah,
and I put a lot of pressure on myself to be like excellent at it all the time because I like being alone. Like I really genuinely do. But it's like I also don't have any social connections here, and I am a sociable person. So it's like I popped into a lunch I was invited to today, which is the first thing I've been invited to in about 6 months or whatever. And it was three women who are all kind of newly divorced or separated and very angry at the world and very miserable. Like the energy was so like yeah, just it was just like so unbelievably negative. And so I was just like, oh man, there's like bites. So yeah, I'm all right. Like and interesting sort one thing is saying it out loud always makes you feel a bit better. But also when you're isolating, that's always a part of it for me. So it's like, yeah, all of these things are true, but I could also be making more effort to go and join classes and blah
Yeah,
blah 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 blah, which I'm not. So I take it with a pinch. I think what I've learned in recovery is to take all my emotions with a pinch of salt a little bit and
yeah,
be like, okay, like not gaslighting you, sweet Mandy, but also everything's fine.
yeah. You know, all feelings pass. That's the great thing
Yeah,
about these feelings is that we can sit with them and we do know that's the one true thing of them is that they will pass. It's kind
yeah.
of that I always call it the solitude versus isolation.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I love my solitude, but I can, when, as you're talking, I really recognize that sometimes it's because I can feel completely healed when I have no triggers around me. If
Interesting.
no one triggers any wounds, then I'm like, oh, life is just wonderful. Not to say there's that conflicting, like sometimes, I'm just saying, I'm like sat here today. Yeah, kids have gone back for the first day, and I was really like, oh, I'm going to be so pleased to get back to some kind of routine. And then I've sat here like, I'm so lonely. What do I do now? Um, yeah, and as I said, with the solitude, I'm like, oh yeah, I know I'm healed and my nervous system feels good. And then when I go out into the big wide world, I'm like, oh no. Um, and it's really, you talk about those angry women, that was so me for the last couple of years. Um, and actually, yeah, no, on the weekend, I started to say to you, and then we never finished it. We had like a double date, me and my new in my new relationship and my friend in her new relationship, and they were so incredibly normal and something that I haven't done for like 20 years because of the circumstances with everything. So reminding my, it was so normal it felt uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
I talked about it today, like goodness, yeah, that was one thing in my marriage where he was very poorly. That disconnect between us was massive. So to be connected like that and in a healthy way feels so uncomfortable for me. uh, so it's
Yeah.
interesting moving through this sober. Um,
Yeah.
but of course, connection is really important, right? Because it's the opposite to addiction is
It
connection.
is. So apart from the kids going back, how are you other than that?
Well, yeah, navigating this like the the new relationship uh with a sober mind is interesting. A sober mind and a whole load of kind of complex trauma and um the yeah, the uncomfortable feeling of normality. And also then it feels almost a little bit kind of cycling between feeling really happy and feeling really down when I question myself. So that's been me
Mm.
today is like weather's not great, my mood doesn't feel great. Um and yeah, lots of lots of questioning in my mind. But otherwise, good. I did get out for a walk and I went out for a bike ride. So I'm like feeling very proud of myself.
Wow, well done. Yeah, I did sort of crossly say to myself, well, I suppose I'll go out for a long walk. That will take up some time. Just like, or listen to a podcast or something all by myself. You know, poor old me, just like having time to like do what I want. Boo hoo. Um, but yeah, the weather. I think it's like it's not. I just don't like this sort of weather. It's very stormy, very windy, very rainy.
Yeah,
Um,
we've gone from our summer, full summer to smack bang autumn, and it's we've had no gentle lead into it, right? It's just like, right, your happy time is over.
Yes, bye bye now. Okay. Yeah, see you in May if you're lucky.
It's, it's
Yeah.
quite interesting though. So I was thinking about both of us and how you know us in the old recovery world, how we tend to be quite all or nothing, and how we've both gone from our sobriety to really working in our sobriety, like that this is our world, right? And working for ourselves from home, and the connection within the recovery worlds. That's quite an interesting thing to navigated over the last, what, it's 8 years for you, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because tomorrow will be 5 years since Kate and I's first book was published, which is crazy.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, and I mean, it's just yeah, the whole thing has been quite quite something, um, and both connecting and isolating in individual in equal parts. I think for both of us,
yeah,
like I think a big part of kind of um, working in this field was around that recognition, connection, and um, and purpose and meaning all being connected to my own journey.
yeah,
Um, but at the same time, there's that realization that you can't be part of the community as well as lead the community.
yeah,
For me, anyway, when you've still got a lot of healing to do. But it's almost like, yeah, you of course you can, but it's like, but they can't be your community, like which
yeah.
I guess is why I ended up in AA. But um, yeah, I mean I don't even know whether I do work in this, in this world anyway. I mean, I certainly do from a kind of um a behind the scenes side. I I'm doing a lot more kind of I'm writing some training for alcohol change. I'm doing a lot more work with them, which is really exciting. Um, I I think my mission might be moving towards kind of looking after the people that want to work in this space.
Yeah.
Um, because well, A, from people that are reaching out for help, I think there's definitely some green flags and red flags to think about when you're, choosing someone to work with.
Sure.
But I also think it's a hugely unregulated, um, work environment. And I think, yeah, it can cause a lot of burnout and a lot of unsafety for both coach and client. So yeah, it's interesting. I kind of feel like it will all just play out as it's supposed to, but um, yeah, I mean, Instagram, all of that stuff, it's not a place that I can hang out in really. Substack seems to be okay so far. My new thing.
You
I'm
saying?
really excited about it. And then I set it all up in a day. I had a flurry of like dopamine, like rush, like, yeah, boom, 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 this is amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna do this and stuff. And then the next day woke up and was like, oh my God, what have I done? I've totally like relapsed into social media stuff. And then I had to like calm myself down and be like, look, it's not the same. And you know, you'll just have to see. And actually, I'm not going on it all the time and haven't really engaged that much um, so far. So we'll see. But yeah, it's interesting to how the kind of landscape of this, just the whole thing has changed so much, hasn't it?
It has. And even when we were talking about setting this up, right, this was one of the reasons was the kind of the sober influencer and what that looked like. And um, a lot of the sober influencers who had started drinking after 4 or 5 years, that both of us had known. Um, and what, yeah, like drinking, sobriety is a trend being a great thing, but also how does that align with,
with
yeah,
recovery.
yeah, with people who it's life or death.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that connection within the community is interesting. I've said to my community before, addiction's really manipulative, and when we are in it, we're really manipulative as well. That's the truth. Um, and I 100% could talk myself into drinking and could tell everybody else that it was a really good idea for me to drink because I'm not like everybody. My brain can totally do that if I wanted it to. So that's why I stay connected within this community.
Mm.
Um, is so that I can be radically honest with myself of like, no, my brain's no different. I see what it tries to do to me occasionally. Um,
Look, we both have to do the, you know, what is it? Silent mode on, silent mode off thing. Right. That's my new marker of if someone has, a predilection to addictive behaviors. That if you have an iPhone, there's the like switch, which is um what is it?
silent mode, yeah, we both,
Silent mode on, silent mode off.
yeah,
In my brain, I find that a very difficult um
concept.
complex concept to understand, right? Because it's like a double negative. Silent mode on, silent is off. No, there's nothing happening. Sound is on, silent mode. So I have to do it at least 3 times and say it out loud. And then I found out today that you, Ellen, have to do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly that. It's that double negative of how can you have it be on when it's silent and off when it's loud. Um, and
So I'm afraid
it's
your brain is like my brain.
it's anxiety causing in me. Oh,
Yeah.
let me just check 3 times
Yeah.
to make sure. So it's good to connect with a fellow.
Yeah, there you go. If you're ever in doubt, if that addictive voice beckons, just go, oh, I'm the same as Mandy because I do that thing with the phone. Because I got no doubt that like I can never drink again. None of that
No,
happens in my brain. So yeah, thank goodness. At the moment, right? And we
that's
can
it.
only do today.
Yeah. And I say like my sobriety's definitely gone through periods. I think that's the biggest learning for me is that most of the time I am so happy in my sobriety and all the benefits it's brought me. And there are periods where I'm like, oh, I have to recognize that my brain is still has that tendency towards
Tricky
addiction.
monster.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I have to make sure that I stay grounded in the reasons why I choose not to drink.
Well, and again, that's that thing of isolation, isn't it? When you start to isolate from from your sober community or whatever, that's a really big like sign of like trouble. When you start to see the differences and not the similarities. Um, and I have to watch that a little bit in the French AA group because I go because it's local and there's, you know, um, but and I remember my mate saying this, who's been in the fellowship for like 12 years. She was just like, French AA is very stuck in the problem and not in the solution. And it's like a lot of things in France, it's
Yeah.
like 15 years behind or something. But sometimes it can just be so bleak, and they just say the same thing every week. So every week is the same, stories of what happened, and there's none of that real sort of spiritual solution, I guess. Like the emotional sobriety, that's what I needed. I needed that conversation around we have this like let's acknowledge the hole in the soul, and you know this is the solution. So I need to be a bit, because sometimes I sit there and go, maybe I'm, because they all just talk about when they're in rehab and then when they came out of rehab and then they were told to go to AA, and it's also formulaic and it doesn't feel like they've ever had any um, reflection of anything. And we were talking about this before, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again in terms of that kind of danger ground of, well, I'm an alcoholic, so it's an excuse, like that weird thing that happens with a lot of French um, kind of psychiatric care and addiction is very much like, well, they say I'm malade alcoholic, like I'm a sick alcoholic, that's how they introduce themselves. Um, and it's as as much as I acknowledge that I will always, I will never be cured of my addictive tendencies, and that's why I can never drink. I'm also not like, that's no, that doesn't mean I need to be stuck there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I think we're going to do a whole kind of episode on this, aren't we?
we are.
On that idea of alcoholism as a disease and whether that's helpful or whether it hinders slightly.
Well, just all the labels,
Yeah, not just that. It's certainly an interesting concept. And I always go back to like nothing is our fault, but everything is our responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like, what we can control is our responsibility. And that's why I love coaching over therapy. It's
Mm.
controversial. I do think there's a place for therapy, and I think therapeutic coaching is brilliant, but I love that forward-facing solution. Like, um, okay, so this is where we found ourselves. We can delve with therapy into the why of where we got, how we got
Yeah.
here. How do we move forward in a healthy way?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the same. Yeah, I mean, I will always choose to have coaching in my life because of that. Because yeah, like obviously I think when you're doing stuff like I did a lot of EMDR around specific trauma, and that I mean that is essentially, it's not fixing, but it's diminishing the the
The impact.
the impact of those experiences. But yeah, just talk therapy, it's not my thing. It's very good for stabilizing, especially in trauma therapy, and it's very good to get that understanding. But at some point, yeah. And I think that's why this is the paradox of, the situation with sober coaching. I've got a blog in my head like why I don't call myself a sober coach anymore. Um, because it's like the perfect intervention basically in habit change, but it's so unregulated and can be so unsafe.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And ultimately, we in this field, we are normally working with people who alcohol is just the symptom, right?
yeah,
Like removing alcohol. Sometimes alcohol is actually the life jacket that people wear. So it's um yeah, so many other things come up. I think I like to use therapy as a tool, recognizing when and this, I mean, going back to our theme of connection, that's what it's been really apparent for me is moving through this of in a sober way is when I do connect with people and I recognize that things are triggering me and I'm not responding in a way that is aligned with who I want to be. Um, then that's the time that I've gone and been like, actually, I think I need to speak to a therapist. It's not fair to those around me to expect them to, you know, to manage my emotions. That's something I definitely want to do myself, but I need a bit of understanding as to why I'm responding
yeah,
like this. That is something that's healthy. And I really like that kind of choice to dip in and out of it.
yeah.
Um, as
Yeah, and
and
I think that's the way it should be. And I think changing, people that you work with fairly regularly is pretty important, because if you are only getting one perspective, it's like the Johari window, right? It's like we know what we know, others know what they know about us, and
yeah,
then we need those people to be able to reflect for us to see the things that we don't see. um, and having different types of therapy, different perspectives, as you say, as kind of interventions to be able to move forward, like, yeah, it can be really, really helpful. Um, Totally off topic for today, but connections with others.
Yes.
Um, tell me what that looks like for you now that you're at this point in your recovery sobriety.
Well, I mean, it's obviously my life has changed a huge amount since I gave up alcohol. So that in itself is something. When I gave up alcohol, I was in what I thought was a very kind of solid marriage, and we lived with my mum as well, and with three kids, and in France. And I've always been somebody, I mean, like you, we have older brothers. I've always been somebody who had a lot of male friends and not very many female friends. Um, so in sobriety, I mean, in the early days, connection changes, right? Like the connection I had in the early days was around drinking with most of my friends and with my brother, my cousin, my husband, and even my mum. And those relationships shifted. And then as it's moved on, it's been really, really exploring like what is healthy connection. We talked about last week connection with ourselves, and that's really that's really where the learning's been. Like keep on connecting with myself of what is good in a relationship. And I think we can kind of break it down into different relationships as well, right? Like there's relationships with our loved ones, intimate relationships with our kids, with our parents, with family, with friends. Um, and a lot of those have shifted. But a lot of reading has come from that as well, and a lot of learning around what is healthy and what is not so healthy. So I think when I was drinking, a lot of my relationships, I was definitely kind of the go-to person and said yes to people a lot. I wasn't very boundaried in that. Um, and I enjoyed that. There was a lot of ego around that as well, like being the go-to person and could people please and be Wonder Woman. Um, and over the last few years, it's really leaning into being vulnerable around people and being a lot more open to connecting with people. I've definitely always worn some kind of shield of like an air of fuck you, I don't want to connect. uh, which has kept me lonely as well, right? Like, especially when things fell apart. So
Mm,
it's really moved, but it's I really enjoy this part of my sobriety because I really, really oh, and sometimes I find it really tiring when I'm constantly checking in with myself. Like, is this a good response? Is this not a good response? Like, how do I feel about this? How does my nervous system feel around this person? But actually, the learning around connections is has been really, really what I find absolutely fascinating.
mm. What you mentioned, kind of reading about that, what has helped you?
Well, I know the first book that I really read that was really eye-opening was The Drama Triangle, Chris West's The Cartman Drama Triangle. Lots of people know the theory of this, but the book for me was just, again, we talk about like it has action steps in it. It
Yeah.
has very specific points that you can make improvements. And um, for me, it really, really was eye-opening because it allowed me to take responsibility for my own role in the breakdown of certain relationships. Um, and move towards kind of slightly, yeah, to the empowerment triangle, right? Or it helped me to recognize where I have my strengths and where I have my weaknesses and how to shift that. Um,
Yeah, it's such an interesting part, isn't it, to that taking responsibility because it's almost like I experience relationships only through trying to kind of get this is how it felt like only through kind of the reactions of what I got back, basically. So I never kind of had any awareness or any kind of accountability for my behavior in it, other than thinking that I was always doing the right thing, basically. But it's like, communication, relationships are a two-way process. You can't just be like ultra focused on the behavior of the other person, criticizing it, embracing it, loving it, wanting it to be different, all of those things. It's equally like our responsibility to take ownership of what we put in, and really kind of think about what that was, because
Yeah.
a lot of my people pleasing and a lot of that was completely unconscious, but a type of manipulation. I'm going to make myself sort of, yeah, indispensable to you, so
Yeah.
you don't have a choice about me being around. And like, I I could just never really I could never understand it growing up. I would get that you're too intense, you're too this, or be quite hard work. And I was like, I don't get it because I'm so in this, I'm so your friend. I'm the best friend you could
Couldn't
ever
love you
have.
any harder.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but without understanding that I wasn't being respectful to, or even asking the question of, is that actually what they needed or wanted from me?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and it
um,
goes back to what we talked about last week as well, right? With our self-esteem and our self-worth. Like if we're invaluable to people, then they're gonna love us, and that ties to our self-worth. So it's um and we don't get taught these things. So that's that when I'm hearing you speak, I'm like, yeah, whoever stopped and said what a healthy relationship looks like
yeah,
to
yeah,
us, where we necessarily modeled healthy relationships. So I don't know. But for sure, reading, I mean, the Cartman Triangle for me was a real kind of like, oh, yeah, every time I step in to rescue somebody, I, I enable them, and B, I take their power away. And that feels great momentarily, but then I turn into the persecutor and I turn into the bitch that I don't like. Like, fuck's sake, people taking advantage of me.
yeah.
And
Or the victim. I was very good at that. Yeah.
yeah, um, and cycling between the three, and being able to read that book for me was really the first time that I'd gone like, oh, okay, I can choose to show up in a different way, and I can hear more what people need from me and what they don't need from me. Um, and respect that a little bit and give them
Yeah,
their
I mean, yeah. Talking about kind of therapy, I think that was one of the main areas of what, because I did attachment for informed trauma therapy, and having to sort of really be explained what was secure attachment and what wasn't, and what was enmeshment and what was, you know, um, anxious attachment and all of these things. And also kind of, I think what was very helpful doing that with a kind of safe other that, I trusted, was that because I instantaneously would just go into blame and just be like, oh my God, and then what have I done to the kids? And oh my God, it's like, right, good enough parenting, good enough parenting. And attachment can be, you can create secure attachment at any time, just like reminder that this isn't, nothing's fixed. And it's like the brain, we have neuroplasticity, we are not, well, goes
yeah.
back to what they're saying, we're not, yeah, we're not fucked, it's just it's about what we do from here, and all the stuff that we can do for ourselves.
So you just mentioned attachment. So we both got that book. I think you recommended it to me years ago, and I've only just finished it actually. The book Attached around
Mm,
avoidant and secure, and I feel like that really kind of sits along the Cartman drama triangle.
yeah. If you're listening, Ellen's doing show and tell at the
Yeah, I'm
moment.
doing show and tell. I love my books. And if you're part of my group, then you know that I'm always like, and this one, and
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah. What
Because
was
I
the one that you made, which I think is the most frustrating thing, that you got me to listen to, but you just can't actually buy the paper version?
that's called Fierce Intimacy by Terry Real, which
Yeah.
again I feel like is life changing.
Yeah.
Um, I
But
haven't.
it's so frustrating not to have a physical copy of the book.
No, I thought I had a physical copy,
Mm.
then got sent the CDs, which I'm holding up for anyone that can't isn't looking at the video. Um, but it's a brilliant, brilliant book, and again, it's a therapist that has given action steps, has
Yeah.
given exercises to do. It's not just talk therapy; it is how we can work through exercises. The conflict resolution loop in there is something that I use for inner conflict, but also when I'm working through conflict with other people, I will always go back to that exercise,
Mm.
it's intimacy. And I think it's really interesting reading these books through a sober lens because even though they're not written by sober people necessarily, um, I think
He
as we
he talks quite about 12 step, doesn't he, in there?
he does, yeah.
Yeah.
But reading them as a sober person, I feel gives us a real another dimension to them.
Yeah, I'm trying. I, it's really frustrating, that book, because like I can't retain information if I don't see it written down. So I remember listening to it just being like, ah, and like I probably need to listen to it again and have a notebook and actually write stuff down. But I
You
think
can,
another thing that I trained in, which I work with clients quite a bit on, and I'd love to do more sort of in-depth training on, is transactional analysis. Um, and I did a course on it, so I don't have a specific book, but that kind of, if someone's not in their secure adult and you're trying to have a discussion with them about anything, essentially it's just pointless. So that understanding of where you are, like, are you in your adaptive teen, or, critical parent, or wounded child, or are you in your secure adult, and then where is the other person? And you can, because then it's the same. Cartman is very much based on transaction analysis, that if you are not adult to adult, someone's going to be you're going to be stepping into roles. So either it's going to be like nurturing parent to wounded child, or critical parent to child, which is essentially, you know, persecutor or fixer, or,
victim.
um, yeah. So in real life, in terms of, I mean, I know we were going to talk about boundaries, weren't we, as well? The Melissa Urban's book on boundaries is very good. There's another one that I really like on boundaries, which is, it's in the white section of the Rainbow bookshelf. Um, fill for time, Ellen, fill for time.
I
Um,
was going to say Terry Reels and Fierce Intimacy. Yeah, you mentioned that you can't get a hard copy. One, just a little plug from my website. You can. I've written a few blogs around it with some downloadable worksheets off it, but also there's loads of like counseling websites, therapy websites that have taken his ideas and put them into worksheets. So there is quite a lot. And I think if you go onto Terry Reels' website, you can also download the workbook along for Fierce Intimacy, which is well worth it. Have you
okay,
found?
I'm gonna have to come back, and I'm getting like a crook and like pain in my neck. So, um, but it's very good. I'll put it in the show notes when I find it. Um, in terms of kind of connections and things, over time. I mean, my relationship with my husband, he still drinks. He drinks a lot less now. Um, has been through, a lot in regards to trying to find our own boundaries and communication as a like one sober person and someone else that still drinks. Relationships like friendships, I'd say what's been quite interesting is recently like I'd say my friendships kind of split in two. So there was three, I'd say. So there was like the friendships that have never changed, regardless of it. They accept me completely, like my unconditionals, childhood friendships. Um, and then there were the friends where I had to put in a big boundary because, they are still very much into partying very hard and it just did not make sense. And I think I had to have a lot of anger towards alcohol and drugs for a long time um, to keep myself safe. And then there's been the friendships that I've made over since I've been sober. Um, but interestingly, I've kind of reached out and kind of had a few conversations with that old group recently, sometimes because they are realizing how alcohol, drugs is showing up for them.
Mhm.
More as well because it just doesn't bother me anymore. Like I don't feel so kind of I don't feel so attached to other people's behavior anymore, I think. Um, what about for you?
Yeah, it's interesting with uh the friendship groups for sure is I feel like the universe worked in magic ways. I don't know whether it did work in magic ways or whether it was like a change of algorithms. When I stopped drinking, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over the last 6.5 years, there's been numerous amount of alcohol-free people that have stepped into my life. And that's been a real blessing. So it's interesting in our house how we have these kind of conversations at the dinner table all the time. So the kids are hearing them.
Mm,
Um, it's just that a different type of connection. Um, and yeah, doing the work around this, specifically that kind of diamond triangle, I've been able to look at why I really connect with some people and attached. It's because when people are very secure and I have a very secure attachment to them, I don't feel I need to step into any role for them. Um, Love
interesting.
that with friends. In fact, I feel like, especially, having been single really the last few years, is that my friends have become much more important to me,
Mm,
but that I don't want to step into any role for anybody. I want to have like just friends who I love and who love me, and call me out on my bullshit. Like I don't expect um to, there's compromise, but um yeah, I would say it's shifted to a much healthier uh area with friends. Um
yeah, I certainly don't need as many as I used to.
no.
I was just trying to fill up. Well, there's the other hole, the hole in the soul again. Fill up the hole, just keep adding people more. It's always like quantity will show that I matter or something. Um, and I don't. I mean, I just like one friend. Yeah, that's all. Just one friend, um, who's like, they don't have to be happy all the time, but like, at least have some time where it's like pleasant kind of stuff, a bit of a laugh. Um, but yeah, I generally I'm I think one of the things that I've really realized is that I am better at taking care of. I think a big learning was that I used to think that the best idea was to say yes to everything, um, because then I was, that was some of my value was tied into to that,
Yeah.
and knowing my capacity for things
Yeah.
and knowing like when to step out of things, even though it's still super uncomfortable for me. The learning that actually, in the long run, that I'm not going to let people down. Like I would do stuff, just say yes, 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 because I didn't want to let people down. And then I would end up like making it worse. Um, so that's still uncomfortable. Like when we were at Latitude with my brothers, one of the nights I just like I just have to. I'm going off site to have a good night's sleep, which was just huge. And I was like in bed going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, but also like, oh my god, like I did it. Um, and like realizing, what I can and can't do. I mean, would I have ever got to that place if I didn't have like a chronic fatigue syndrome? Don't know, but would I have needed to either? Don't know. Like my most fun thing was like missioning it around and doing as much as I could.
Yeah.
Uh, but now I can't do that. So
Yeah. It is interesting. It's the can we have healthy connection with others if we don't have healthy connection with ourselves? Like it really does have to start with that, doesn't it? That you are so connected with yourself that you
mm,
can advocate for yourself in a way that feels aligned. Um,
yeah,
and I think all the time we are compromising ourselves and compromising our values, then we will never show up in a healthy way. And that's not necessarily just sobriety, is it? That comes with midlife as well. And with that learning, I think sobriety adds, as I say, it adds another dimension to it um, because we're so aligned and so aware all the time of
mm,
what we're doing. But I do feel the more I am, yeah, aligned, grounded in myself, then the better I can show up for other people. And you talk about, how do we show up in conflict, or whether it's as that teenage self, or just all the work that comes with sobriety for me, and not just sobriety, but the stress resilience in calming my nervous system. The reading Fierce Intimacy, he talks about in conflict resolution, the first step is to ask ourselves, are we in the right frame of mind? And then to ask permission of the other people, like, are you in a good place for me to talk to you about something? So it's that checking in with myself constantly of, is this coming from the rational me, or
yeah.
is this coming from a fight or flight response? And can I make sure that I'm in my adult self before I talk to somebody? Which is massive learning for me as a fiery Aries, for sure. I was always like, oh, I'll fight about it first, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that I mean, that's, and yeah, huge compassion if people are like, I'm not there, because I'm like, I'm not there most of the time. Not only being a Gemini and being like duality at battle all the time, but also, trauma,
yeah,
sleep deprivation, all of those things. But that you are absolutely right. There is nothing more right than you cannot have healthy connections with others if you do not have healthy connection with yourself. So it's almost that invitation of like, what is your daily practice?
yeah.
And just little by little, because then I can get really overwhelmed to be like, I'm not touching myself all the time. But it's like, but that doesn't, my that black and white brain doesn't mean you just don't do anything at all. It's like, so you can start by journaling, or you can start by, you know, meditating, having a walk.
I and
Or,
yeah, mine is like as simple as I can start with taking a breath.
mm,
That just that breath is enough normally for me to like okay, instantly, even momentarily gets me into like a rest and digest state. And okay, hang on, I'm okay here.
Mm.
What's the next step? It doesn't need to be any more than that quite often.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's leave it there. Um, Interesting topic. And yeah, I highly recommend all those books. I'll put them in the show notes.
Show notes, yes.
Um, and yeah, we'll be back next week.
Episode 9.
Yeah.